What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video. Today, I want to get into an NFL insider explaining why Justin Fields picked the New York Jets over the Pittsburgh Steelers. So ESPN's Jeremy Fowler was on the Dan Patrick Show, and he reported that the Steelers put together a very competitive offer for Justin Fields and that they were, quote, all in on the quarterback.
Look, that last week or a week and a half ago, they put together an offer for Justin Fields that I was told was very competitive with what the Jets offered him, which was 2 years, $40 million with $30 million guaranteed. Something went off where he chose the Jets, and he must have felt the love more from the Jets than he did the Steelers, who essentially benched him last year for Russell Wilson. So he gets a fresh start. I do believe they were all in on Fields. I don't know if they had Fields ahead of Rodgers, but they were willing to do Fields. Like, both sides at one point were open to it. It didn't work.
So this very much so feels like the New York Jets won this battle between the Steelers and Justin Fields because Fields obviously picked the Jets over the Steelers. Now, why would he do that? I have a few reasons for. I wanted to go through and talk about the circumstances between the two spots. Now, the first and foremost thing that Fowler mentions, but makes a lot of sense, is kind of the stability factor. So the Steelers benched Justin Fields a year ago after he started 4-2. And now were there still some flaws in his game, even though the Steelers were 4-2? Absolutely. I don't think it's fair to just completely gloss over it and say, oh, Justin Fields was amazing last year. He wasn't amazing. There was a reason why he got benched, but he was playing the best football of his career to date. He had a passer rating of 93, which is better than it's ever been. He had a nice combination of passing touchdowns and rushing touchdowns through his first 6 games of the year. But what the Steelers did was they decided, even after going 4-2, that the best course of action was to go with Russell Wilson, who ended up starting 12 games, including the playoff game against the Baltimore Ravens, and he went 6-6 over that span. Now, 2 very different players, but I'm sure from Fields' side, he's looking at, I had a winning record. I was 4-2 when I started. They chose to go with Russell Wilson. They were a 500 team the rest of the way, the Pittsburgh Steelers were, and there's really no guarantee that Fields would remain the starter in Pittsburgh. With the Jets, there's really nobody else pushing. Yes, Tyrod Taylor's there, and that's a good veteran insurance backup, I would say. But he's going to really have the opportunity to play this year and potentially win this job long-term going forward if he plays well. Now, I'm not putting the chances extremely high that happens. I think the most likely scenario is he is a fine bridge quarterback for the New York Jets in 2025. They find the quarterback that they like in 2026, and maybe he starts 2026 and the rookie quarterback sits in year 1. That's a path that I can see. I don't think it completely bottoms out and that the Jets, bench him after 4 games and Tyrod comes in and then they cut Justin Fields after the year. I also don't think he's going to throw for 4,000 yards and like 25 touchdowns and then rush for another 10 touchdowns. Like, that's a little bit too optimistic for me. I hope that happens because that's the easiest path to the Jets finding their franchise guy. But I think what's most likely to happen here is somewhere in the middle between the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. There's some things with the roster on the offensive side of the ball as well. The Jets, without a doubt, have the better offensive line. The Steelers' projected offensive line is Broderick Jones at left tackle. He's been pretty horrendous his first 2 years in the league playing right tackles, making the switch over to the left side. Isaac Sumalo, I think is how you pronounce the last name, at left guard. Really didn't do a whole lot. Zach Frazier's their best offensive lineman at center. Mason McCormick, right guard, and Troy Fatanu, who didn't really play all that much last year as a rookie, at right tackle. Now for the New York Jets, Olu Fashanu, John Simpson, Joe Tippmann, AVT, and Chuck Okorafor. That is a better unit, even with Okorafor, who is kind of the placeholder at right tackle. Kind of hope that they find a young player in the NFL draft to compete with him for the starting right tackle job. It doesn't have to be Armand Menbu, but it could be. If that ends up being the Jets pick, 7th overall, then I think you could say the Jets offensive line is far and away more talented than the Pittsburgh Steelers. But even if it is Okorafor, I would say it's a win for the Jets. Their offensive line from left tackle through right guard is very good. The interior of this offensive line, Simpson, Tippmann, AVT, is just flat out solid. Simpson was an awesome signing. Joe Tippmann looked great in year 2. AVT finally mostly healthy at right guard. And Olu Fashanu, I think, came on incredibly strong last year. And the offensive line looked significantly better when Fashanu was at left tackle versus when they had Tyron Smith at left tackle for the New York Jets. So offensive line better, and maybe he's hoping like, okay, behind the better line, maybe I could play to my fullest potential, because sacks have been an issue for Justin Fields in his career. Didn't have a good line in Chicago. Didn't have a great line last year in Pittsburgh. There's also the Garrett Wilson connection. So Justin Fields played with Garrett Wilson at Ohio State. He also played with Jeremy Ruckert too. But he has someone that he has established chemistry with, who's in that situation. Yes, I think you could say the Pittsburgh Steelers better overall wide receiver room. They trade for DK Metcalf. They already had, George Pickens in place. Their top 2 is better than the Jets' top 2 because it goes Garrett Wilson and then drop off to Allen Lazard right now, and there's not a guarantee that Lazard sticks on this roster. But the Wilson connection, I think, is an important one. I think Wilson has the chance to be the best wide receiver out of DK Metcalf, and also including George Pickens. The potential is sky high, and like going to a place where there's some familiarity, I think is important for a quarterback. And maybe he's looking at that and going, okay, I already know I have an established connection with Garrett Wilson. We worked really well together at Ohio State. So let's see if we could rekindle that in the NFL. And lastly, I just think the Jets offense is going to be a very run-heavy offense. And when you look at the Jets running back room, I know, some people are down on Breece Hall, didn't have the best year a year ago, but I think the running back room of Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis is better than Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, and Cordero Patterson. Yeah, this is all before the NFL draft, and maybe some things change for both the Jets. No, I think the Jets running back room probably stays the same, but maybe Pittsburgh adds someone in the NFL draft, and that room improves. But I really like the potential that this running back room has in this Jets offense. Breece Hall is, by far the best, pass catching back out of this group. Cordero Patterson, a converted wide receiver, and at one point was a really nice gadget player, but he's a lot older now in the late stages of his career. So I think from Fields' perspective, it's all those things. So you have the little bit more of a reassurance that you're going to get this job and you have a chance to win it going forward. You have a better offensive line. You have the Garrett Wilson connection, and you have, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, and Isaiah Davis. Look, I get it. Like over the last few years, the Pittsburgh Steelers, no doubt, significantly better organization, and historically Steelers better organization than the New York Jets. But there's some other circumstances, and offensively, the Steelers have struggled for a while, and they're trying to get out of their own way a little bit, and they're waiting it out. Maybe Aaron Rodgers ends up as a Pittsburgh Steeler, but I think it makes sense why Justin Fields went with the New York Jets for his pick. But just wanted to come on today and talk about that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm Matt O'Leary. I'll catch you next time.